delicious. I'd never given much thought to how I would die, but not dying at all seems like a good way to go. How's it going, Tea Sippers? Ariana here. Today, I want to talk about my trip into Death Valley. For those of you who asked, but won't you die? What about your dogs? Won't they die? Can your Tesla even go there? Won't it die? First and foremost, I am alive and well. My dogs are alive and well. My car is awesome. I'm alive for a reason. I studied and prepared for the desert. Desert preparation. Now, when I say I prepare, I don't mean the doomsday preparation for any adventure. We all typically prepare. Whether it's prepping for a shopping list for the grocery store, or for those of you in a brick and mortar campus, you might be experiencing this right now, going back to school shopping to prepare for the new school year. Prepping for a camping trip in Death Valley is the same, except that with this specific location, the common rule of thumb is travel prepared to survive, because Death Valley is known as the hottest, driest, lowest place, spanning 156 miles of pure extreme environments with heat of more than 120 degrees. Many locations within Death Valley have the term devil to describe it, or other grim titles. For example, the Devil's Cornfield, Dante's View, the Devil's Golf Course, Furnace Creek. Before you ask, goth is a lifestyle. Funeral Mountains. You get the gist. Since we hike daily, we have our backpacks that we have stocked with first aid kits, water, spare clothes, food, and all that good stuff. For this trip, we added our tent, Tesla mattress, and excessive amounts of water and Gatorade, as recommended by the park rangers. We also packed our SPF long sleeve t-shirts because we were advised not to wear Tang shorts and flip-flops, unless you want to become a sun-dried tomato. Since we brought Alpha and Duchess, we followed the same rules for them as we did for us. They had dog sunscreen for their elbows, paws, nose, and dog boots, and a cooling vest. Usually, I have screen time because my parents are responsible, but on road trips, they know it can get pretty boring, so I was able to download a ton of movies because there is no self-service in the desert. The drive. We drove down to Death Valley, which took 10 hours. The first couple of hours, we listened to a Tesla road trip party playlist. Then it got a little boring, so I napped. It became a pattern. Eat, sleep, stretch at the charging station, drink fluids, repeat. Tesla has well-lit charging stations, and many have dog-friendly areas. So when we charge on longer road trips like this, we get to go outside and use that charge time to stretch our legs. Death Valley! I'll say this again. Death Valley is a freaking desert. 156 miles of heat and barren land. Driving into the desert was about 100 plus miles of backcountry. We passed a small ghost town with one general store, and one gas station. After that, it was complete emptiness. Total cars we passed on our way into the desert? One. I saw more bats than I could count. And these were not startled by people like the ones where I live. I saw pale lizards that looked like rocks until they ran. We saw scorpions and snakes. We got attacked by wasps at 6 in the morning. I don't know what their deal was. We even moved camping spots, but they followed us. The restrooms were surrounded by fire ants. So next time, I may just bring a portable toilet because that type of suffering is not on my list. We saw hundreds of jackrabbits and kangaroo rats. That's a thing. What was the most striking was the silence. It was like the mute button was pressed. Even now, as I'm recording, I hear neighbors, birds, winds, planes. In Death Valley, there were no birds, no chirps, no planes, no trees, so no rustling of the leaves, no winds, no cars, no people. When we stopped walking and the crunching of our shoes stopped, I felt a different fear unlock. At night, Death Valley was 100 degrees. Since we camped in the Tesla, we kept that at 65 degrees. At 5 a.m., we got up to use the restrooms and to take the dogs to do their business before the floor heated up. More than it was. It was 102 degrees. By 8 a.m., it rose up to 105. We drove around Death Valley snapping photos. When it rose up to 110, my mom and I began feeling side effects of heat exhaustion. We were getting out every 5 minutes to take photos, but at that point we stayed in the car longer just to bring down our internal temps. By 9 a.m., it rose to 120, and we began our departure, but stopping every few minutes for photos. My mom was telling my dad that her feet were burning. When she and my dad got back in the car, my dad asked to see her feet, and we were shocked to see her bottom ridges melted off. On this trip, I learned how big California really is. The further south you go, the hotter it gets. 9.5 hours of our 10-hour trip back home was 110 degrees. I was relieved when we got back into our city to see it covered in dense fog. Overall, the trip was exciting and adventurous. I learned so much about nature, my body's capabilities. I'm so grateful to have an adventurous and cautious family. I also learned that I enjoy weekend getaways and camping. I'm looking forward to our next trip, which is up north. Maybe I'll get to meet the Cullens. Tune in next week to find out why a girl's in a wheelchair. Bye for now.